Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to this video. So today we're gonna talk about a marriage that actually lasts quite a bit, 48 years. 48 years, and so one would think, it was a happy marriage, it was like a fairy tale, the love of a lifetime, and it was not. It was very troubled. It was very complicated, where we can't really understand if they were happy or if there were moments of happiness. And we're gonna talk about this particular marriage. So Leo Tolstoy wrote once that all happy families resemble each other, but all unhappy families are unhappy, each their own way. And this was specifically true for his own marriage. So his marriage is quite something, I would say. Alright, let's delve into that. So Tolstoy is 34. He's a count. He is a noble man and decides to get married. And reason number one on the list of things you should never ever do is to get married just because you want to purify yourself, just because you want to get rid of past mistakes. That doesn't work. It doesn't. It simply doesn't. And so Tolstoy decides to get married and picks Sophia Burrs. She was also somebody important in the society. So she was important in the sense that she had a role. She was coming from very well-educated people who had a role in the society as well. Like her grandfather was working for the Ministry of Education. Her own father was working as a doctor for the imperial court. So she was basically at his level, society-wise. She was 18, he was 34. So that makes it for a difference of about 16 years, something like that, right? So they started dating the way, they used to date in those times, which is, of course, no sex. Of course, purity had to be maintained, respect, the appearance of respect, and so on and so forth. So a lot of small talk, perhaps a lot of, more deep kind of conversations, or deeper than the ones one can have today. But anyway, nothing major until probably 1 week before the marriage. 1 week before the wedding, he decided to come clean, reveal to her all of his secrets. And the way he does that is by giving to her his own diary. So she reads, and she's like, why on earth this man is giving me this diary? In the diary, there was all his sexual relationships, all of them. There was the confession that he had impregnated a woman. This woman was a domestic, a servant. She was currently living at his mother's house. She just had a baby, his baby. And so she starts realizing that she is marrying this man. She's not very happy about it. But anyway, she can't say, I'm sorry, I will not marry you. That's not a thing from that period of time. It would have caused a great scandal. She would have justified why, so on and so forth. So there was a risk for her also to never get married. So she goes ahead with the plan. And they start this marriage. Marriage, that is quite something, I was saying, because anyway, they had 13 children, and only 8 of them survived, right? But 18 children it's like almost 16 years back to back being pregnant. And this pregnancy was somehow imposed onto her. And that's not to say that she didn't want to have kids or anything even close to that, but just because imagine a woman being 16 years pregnant back to back with children. I mean, pregnancies were difficult. They are still difficult nowadays. And also the conditions, right? The conditions were not that easy. He wouldn't allow her to have a babysitter, a nanny that could help her out. She needed to do all the cleaning in the house. She needed to raise. She couldn't have a tutor because he believed that the education of the children was entirely up to the mother. And she was not only doing that, she was taking care of so many different things. We can mention here the fact that she would help him out. She was some sort of agent to him. She had to rewrite 8 times War and Peace, which is like a huge book. She was stealing part of his business, getting him contracts. She was taking care of the estate, would pay and would be out there to solve the issues of the peasants, and so on and so forth, right? So she had multiple roles in that household. And so that must have been somewhat complicated to deal with. And so, since we all know that mothers have a lot of free time, she starts doing everything in the house. Now, she does all of those things, right? She obeys. She doesn't dispute, her husband's desires. However, he becomes more and more distant. For instance, one thing that happens is that while she's constantly pregnant, is always out to pick up women, right? Peasants, to the point that everybody in the village who was pregnant, was rumored to have had an affair with Tolstoy. All the children were Tolstoy's. And you guys understand, like, this woman is like doing everything, and he's like distant, far away, more withdrawn, more into his career, and so this becomes like a very contradictory sort of relationship, right? And now all the relationships are somewhat contradictory because human behavior is very weird at times, right? Not extremely coherent. But we are in a situation where he doesn't even talk in the house, right? He only writes his own diaries, and then they exchange the diaries, so she gets to know what he thinks and vice versa. So, and because we all know that mothers and newly mothers don't have anything really to do, and of course here I'm being ironic before somebody misunderstands me, she does all of those things. And sure, he has some virtues, right? And then again, I don't know if he really was divided, if he really was struggling, right? He said that he was, but then we don't see an attempt to change. We really don't. So he's out and about, she's at home. He is with women, and she is raising the children. He's in the house and writes or works, and she helps him out, right? And then all we see are these diaries, right? And these diaries where he depicts her as this horrible woman almost, right? Very mean and very cruel to him almost. And she writes also, and what she writes are all her disappointments, all her inability to understand him, to understand why on earth he's behaving like this, right? Getting her pregnant almost every year, but then women that are pregnant cannot be touched, so other women are available. So there's a lot of this, which is a lot of almost a very narcissistic sort of relationship where whatever you do gets misunderstood by each parties, where there is no communication objectively, but in those sort of relationships probably even communication won't help, because there's a lack of compassion and empathy and putting oneself in the other person's shoe, so in the other person's position. And we see all of that. So it's hard to imagine that there was actually a feeling of attachment, which that was, and we also have to acknowledge that when she was delivering the various babies she had, he was at her bed, crying, waiting, etc. But then one has also to wonder whether that is because he was concerned about her health, or because he wouldn't know how to start or where to start from in raising his own children. Probably he would have just gotten remarried, and that was a solution at the time. And so we see all of that. And anyway, the marriage continues, proceeds. So they stay 48 years together, and it's, a marriage where there is love, allegedly. It's hard to think 48 years you develop, or you should develop, some sort of affection towards that person. Then again, I don't know. But it's hard to digest all of that. And so he writes that he's divided, that he's split, that he's this horrible man that has two sides. One, the spirit, the other one being the flesh. How he's so attracted by the sort of scenes, right? And he most of the times blames her, most of the times blames the tobacco, the lack of imagination, the idea that he has to live this sort of life, he has to go and pick women, he has to be and commit adultery, he has to do all of that. It's part of almost his persona, his personality, right? But then on the other hand, he writes things like, I can't live without you, you're my soul. Which now it's totally disconnected, from the reality we understand the marriage was. So he writes all of that, again, very contradictory. She, in the meanwhile, reflects on how women are forced, in part by nature and in part by society, to sacrifice who they are, or part of who they are. They have all of these energies, right? They have even more energy than men, right? But then they have to have children, and nowadays they don't have to. But if you want to have children, then a lot of your time, a lot of your energy as a mother has to be dedicated to your own children. Rightfully so. The children didn't ask you to be delivered, right? But then at the same time, there's a biology there that pushes many women towards, the willingness, the desire to have children. And she writes about all of these energies, right, that must be dedicated to the husband, to the house, to the kids. And so women that are so full of energy, they get slowly but steadily and surely deprived of all of those energies. They realize that when they are too old, they can't do much else. And she also has an infatuation for a pianist, for a musician. Apparently, she wasn't reciprocated in her feelings. But she started realizing how, there were so few musicians, there were women, so few painters, there were women, educated people, and so on and so forth, right? So how women get always sacrificed in the just in life in general, probably, right? I mean, she was a noble woman. She could have had nannies. She could have had some more time for herself, and yet she didn't. So she reflects on all of that, and while she does that, of course, is out and about and writing. And things change when he has a mystical crisis, because for a very long time there's no record of him trying to change. But at a certain point there is a mystical crisis, which, however, we're not sure that really improved anything. But one day he comes back home and says to her, we have to live this life that is completely ascetical, where we give up, renounce on the riches, and we live in this way very very much based on purity. She goes like, hell to the no. I have kids. I have 8 kids at least, right? To raise, and then all of that sounds very hypocritical. He is the same person that when feels sick goes with the most expensive means of transportation to southern Russia just to get the banya, which, by the way, we have one day to discuss about banya, what they are. I just discovered that was amazing. I really didn't have didn't get the chance to go to have a banya, but that must be like quite the experience. And so, guys, if you have had banya, please comment below. Those kind of spa baths, Russian ways of releasing stress and toxins and whatnot. So just comment below, let me know. I am actually looking forward to one day to have all of that. But anyway, she sees this man that goes for the most nonsensical cold to southern Russia to get cured, spends a lot of money on that, telling her, who has sacrificed a lot of her life, that she has to live without money, basically. And that is not received that well by Sofia. That's most definitely, not something she's willing to endure and to accept. And then the consequence of that is that he starts thinking, very well, then you are with me for the money, you are an opportunist, you don't deserve me, right? And this is almost, the paradoxical situation in which they found themselves. So all of that was going on, and then the tensions just increased. And then one day for Christmas, he leaves the house. He left. Not much of an explanation, but she understood what was going on. He thought that was his chance to just go away out of the problems, get rid of them, eliminate them, wash them away. And so he went away. She understands that. She attempts suicide. she attempts to drown herself in this iced lake. I think her cousin saw her and saved her life, and he abandoned her, abandoned the family, just removed himself from the situation. He was on a train, and on the train you would get newspapers, and so he starts reading the newspapers, and headlines of those newspapers is Tolstoy has abandoned his family. I think the sense of shame here played a huge role in determining his behavior, because what happens from now on is that he doesn't want to be recognized, he doesn't want to be asked, he doesn't want people to know that he's on the train, he doesn't want to see what's happening, how the public perception is reacting to that. And so he's still an old man, and it's still Russia, and it's very cold, but he decides to get off the train. So naturally he starts walking, gets pneumonia, gets recovered in a house close to the train station, and there Sophia goes. She hears the news that her husband is about to die, so she goes there, but he would not allow her to enter the room to see him dying. She is only allowed when he is unconscious, which is probably the worst punishment for her. She would get home convinced that she had caused him to die, which is like a very sad perception, very sad feeling to have about your husband, the man you had 13 kids with. But that is the end, basically, right? They stayed together until death did them apart. And that is, also the end of this video. But we want to know from you guys. We want to know what you think. We want to know what you think of this marriage. If you knew the story, if you have ever been to a banya, so please let us know. I'm sure that out there are lots of people that have experienced once a toxic relationship. So let us know your thoughts on everything we have said today, and we'll talk some more next time on a new different topic. Don't forget to like the video if you have enjoyed the video, to subscribe to the channel, to hit the notification bell, and of course to comment below. I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!